Okay, everybody, how are you doing? It's your boy, Coach Vic. I am here with land investor and land funder, Reid Kurtenbach. Reid, say hello to the people out there.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me.
No problem. I'm glad to have it. Reid and I are actually working together. He's the first person I'm actually going in on a deal with. And he actually brought up the idea. It's like, hey, would other people be interested in what I do and how I do it? I'm like, hell yeah, people would be. Because one thing I'm getting a lot is I'm showing people how to invest in land for pennies on the dollar. But sometimes you don't want to use your own money or you don't have the funds to pay for something that is more than a few $100. And every now and then, sometimes those opportunities come across your desk, and it's a shame to leave them to rot when you can have someone like Reid come and help you out with the deal. So in this interview, I'm going to ask him some questions. Hopefully, they're the questions you guys have on your mind. And he's going to let us know all about what he does, how he can help you and other land investors, and his knowledge and expertise. So I'm actually pretty excited because this could be a first. This is a first for me. Maybe this is going to be a first for a lot of other land investors who don't know people like Reid exist. So Reid, let's start with this. Let's start with the deal that we got going on before I start asking the question. So
Sure.
one thing Reid said was that we got to make sure people understand their expectations. You got to understand what's going on when you're working with somebody else. So before we jump into it, let's talk about how you actually got into first land and then like being a funder for other land investors.
Yeah. So I really got into investing in land. Well, really, the way that I kind of came about was I come from the manufactured housing side. And so a lot of times manufactured homes come with land. And sometimes those manufactured homes are burned up, and I just want to replace it with a new manufactured home. And sometimes I just didn't want to pay for a brand new home or a used home on and move that onto the lot. It was just easier to sell a lot. So that's how I kind of got introduced to land. And when I started selling just the land on its own, there was quite a bit of money there for some infill lots. And this is in the Denver metro area where I'm from. And I thought, okay, well, there's got to be more to this land stuff. And so I started exploring that and found a bunch of different gurus out there that were talking about land and people that were talking about how they were buying cheap land or how they were buying infill lots, rural vacant land. And I thought, okay, so I just started consuming as much as I could, just bought as many courses as I could, studied all of that, and then quickly found out that as much as I like it, I don't have the time to focus solely on that and focus on some of the other investing that I do, which is self storage, and I do have a 9 to 5 job too as well. And so I thought, okay, we have this pile of money, we want to put it to work. We've spent this time on education. I don't really want to put up all the systems and do all that work because I'm already doing that for the self storage side. So how do I still participate actively, get a return on my investment that I put into education? And I thought, well, there seems to be a lot of individuals that are passing up on deals because they run out of money because they've spent all their money on finding the mailers and sending those mailers out, and then they maybe have too many deals that they really can't fund all on their own, and maybe they've tapped out their friends and relatives, and so that's kind of where I come in.
Wow. Now that's impressive. You said a couple of things that I'm very curious about. Number one, what is this self-storage scene that you're talking about? That sounds extremely fascinating. Number two, like, have you been following me around to know exactly my story? How, like, you know what? I need Reid's help. What's going on? You stalking me, man?
Well, I've joined a lot of Facebook groups and reached out to individuals that have mentioned that they need funding. And then luckily I've got all of the people that we fund, I become really good friends with. And I've actually never met any of the investors that we've actually funded land deals for, but they're the type of people that I could just sit down and grab lunch with or grab dinner with or breakfast. Uh, I think just life is too short to do business with people that you just don't get along with or don't click with.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so they've basically a lot of times they'll be in those groups and they'll say, "Oh, I see someone has posted that they need some funding or they need some help, they need a partner," and then they'll just say, "Contact Reid," because they've had a good experience with me thus far. And knock on wood, it stays that way. And then as far as the self storage goes, I think it's important to do these. I look at land deals as it's a short term, but you're only as good as your last investment.
Mm.
And not many land investors I know are renting the land or getting residual income from it. It's not like a long-term residual income. Maybe it's they've sold it on payments, but maybe those payments will eventually end.
Yeah.
So they need something. I found that I need to take the money that I make with funding those deals and put it into longer term investments. So that's like mobile home parks, self-storage, but my focus is really self-storage. So really taking facilities that are owned by mom and pops and then turning them into uh, basically a remotely run operation. So there's no manager that's there. It's just improving it. A lot of these places don't have websites, so I add a website, that sort of thing. So that's our long-term goal, and what we're doing with the money, because I feel like you have to have short-term income and then long-term income, and so that's kind of our strategy.
No, that's amazing. We're definitely going to talk about this self-storage thing after we're done with this.
Yeah, of course.
But
I'm an
that's
open
awesome.
book.
So, as I said, let's jump into a little bit of our deal. So,
Yeah.
to give people a little bit of a background, I came across some property that when I actually sent a letter out or a postcard out to this individual, I just thought this person had one lot. And then when I actually looked through my notes, I'm like, oh, this person owns three lots and they're all roughly the same size. And, if I get them at a good deal, I know this area pretty well. I can sell for a great profit. So once I was able to strike up a deal with this owner, I was like, okay, how am I going to pay for this? And in the past, I would just try to scramble, sell things, do what I had to do. But I'm like, somebody reached out to me before, and that was Reid. Let me actually talk to him and see what this is about. I'm a little skeptical because I'm like, this sounds a little too good to be true. But so far, things have been good. Now, things have been slower because I'm not used to using title companies, and Reid really likes that just to secure his investment. But why don't you tell the people, Reid, what do you feel are the necessary things that you do when you're putting a deal together or you're presenting yourself as an investor to other land investors?
Yeah. So one of the things that I want to do is first off, make sure that we're aligned. So I remember calling you and asking you, what's your why? What's your end goal here? Is it just one deal with me that you want to do, or is it multiple deals? What's really the problem that I'm trying to solve for you, and see if we're a good fit. And then I also want to understand your knowledge and how well ingrained you are in the land investment world. So I want to know, do you know your stuff? Are you fresh off the boat when it comes to really understanding what land is all about? Have you taken any courses? And then how well have you researched this property? Have you taken any funding or outside investment from others? That sort of thing is kind of where I want to kind of gather really a better understanding of you as an individual, you as an investor, and then just make sure that we're kind of aligned. Because sometimes, we'll get into a deal and we can't always sell for cash. And so I'm taking a risk on you in some senses, because at that point, if we have to sell it on financing, well, it's a longer turnaround time to get all my capital back. And I want to know, is this person going to be in the industry for a while, or are they just a fly by night? Are they really going to respect my money? Are they going to respect my time as much as I'm going to respect theirs? Because I want to make sure that most of the investors that I deal with, they are great operators, and they're doing a lot of it all on their own. And I don't want to interrupt that process. I want to make sure that I'm complementing their business. I don't want them to think that I'm going to come into the deal and say, well, did you do this, this, and this, and this? That's just not me. I mean, otherwise I should just be doing the deal myself, right? So,
Absolutely.
and I just try to step into your shoes and say, okay, I just want this funder. And if I have him as a sounding board, if I want to use him as a sounding board, that's great. But if I don't, then he's going to stay out of my business and let me do what I need to do. So, and it's when you're dealing with friends and family, it's important to, I don't know, sometimes I've heard horror stories where, if you get money from a brother or an uncle or something, they're constantly calling you every week saying, did you
Mm,
sell it yet? Did you sell it yet? And I
mm.
know that that's just not how it goes. Sometimes it takes 6 months, sometimes it takes a year. And so you just have to be patient and be confident in the operator. And then if it takes a little bit longer than that, you have to I think it's also important that you vet me as much as I vet you. So you should be asking me, okay, well, if we get to that 6 month mark or whatever that cutoff date is, and I've been really hustling to try to sell this property. Are you just going to try to sell it on your own and then cut me out? And if, depending on what their answer is, you should say yay or nay to taking that person's money. I know some funders in the industry say after 6 months, it's mine. I get 100% of the net profits. You're welcome to market it, but that's it. And so for me, I'm kind of like, if you've shown initiative, you're trying to sell it, you've talked to me, you're some communication, at least probably monthly if it's a new relationship, then I have the utmost confidence in saying, let's just continue extending it out. Because to me, it's more important to have that long-term business relationship with you than just that one last deal where, because some deals are going to be great, others are going to be so-so. And I think it's just the sum of all the deals that you have to look at.
I hear you. I'm actually kind of shocked. If you'd came with me with that, like, oh yeah, after 6 months you don't sell us, I'm like, you can kick rocks. I'll find the money my damn
Yeah.
self.
Yeah.
So I'm glad. I'm actually pretty shocked to hear that. Thank you for sharing that, because that is something I want people to understand. Not every investor or funder is created equal. Some are very impatient. Some are, I guess, they don't understand the business that well. They just want their money. Understandable, but I don't think I would want to work with people like that. I'm sure people listening to this probably wouldn't want to work with someone like that. So I'm glad you gave us a heads up on that. So, quick question. How do you feel our current deal is going right now? Like personally, our relationship has been great. The way we communicate. I know there's a couple of times when my email provider was trash and I had to yell at them for stuff. But so far we've been good dealing with the title company, and everybody knows me. I'm really against them for the most part. Lately, I actually been turning my attitude around about title companies and stuff. So I don't think they're totally a scam and totally worthless. I do think they're slower than they need to be, but that's not neither here nor there. But how have your experience been, working with me for the first time?
Yeah. So far, so good. Just like you, I think let's get through one of these deals and hopefully we can do more. I'm excited about the properties that we funded with you. I mean, the wire went out today. I mean, it's pretty fresh. And, at the end of the day, it's really the holdup was with the title company.
Yeah.
And it's not just unique to this one. I mean, just given the number of properties are selling right now, with how hot the market is, I've got a deal that we are still waiting on. We actually switched title companies because one said that they were 2 months out. And so I was like, well, that's not going to work. I could be a little bit patient, but I said, I don't know that the seller's going to be that patient. And I talked with the investor that I was funding the deal for, and he said, nah, let's find another title company. And uh, I think there's been situations where the title company has saved our butts, at least when we've looked at things, but they often make mistakes. They misspell my name. They misspell the other the land investor's name. They get the profit proceeds wrong. So it's more of just, in a way, it's not passive. And you just have to double check them. I've just seen so many things, but that's why sometimes if you're normally going through a title company, it's just you doing the deal, just really check all the figures, check, whether or not they're really giving you the discount that they said they were going to give you. Like I just was talking to a land investor, I think yesterday, and we were supposed to get a discount. And he was like, I don't see the discount on it. And I was like, I don't see it either. And so it's like, no one cares more about your money than you,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So I don't know that, but same thing with title attorneys. And then I've done some deals where we've self-closed, but there were some times where we missed something and it was like, oh crap, how do we deal with this? And it's just more of, that's the other thing too, that I think is going to be important especially with our relationship or just any of the relationship that I have with the other land investors, because I want to know it's not when the times are good, it's when we run into a stumbling block where I want to know how you think on the spot and how we can strategize together. If we just kind of throw up our hands and just go, well, it's so what, whatever. Or if we kind of come together and say, okay, this didn't go our way. How do we prevent this from happening in the future? And that's what matters to me, because we're all going to make mistakes.
And I hear you. That's solid, because like you're actually kind of getting into a lot of what I was going to ask. Like I was actually very curious. Like, and you kind of already answered this. Like, how do you find people to like, hey, you know what, I actually want to work with this person. You're starting to answer that a little bit. Um, and obviously early on, you don't really know. You have a hunch, you can kind of look at some clues, but you don't really know until you're in the fire with that person if they're a good partner or not. So no, I think this is wonderful. Like people who are looking to get a funder, they have to understand they got to be a person of quality. They got to understand the business. They got to have some deals under their belt, right? You don't want anybody who's brand new to land investing, correct?
It just depends on their initiative. I mean, we always underwrite the deal. So we'll go through our own kind of due diligence, which is good because sometimes we'll point out things to the land investor that weren't aware of.
Mm.
Um, so we're open to, I mean, we've worked with the last two, not including you, but the last two investors were brand new.
Oh,
So we're open to that. It's just it's we will just do a little bit more due diligence. Well, actually, no, we kind of just do the same amount. I just ask them, okay, well, what's your strategy? Same sort of questions. We take everybody through the same system that we have in place, but I don't know what made you choose me. Like, what made you kind of say? Because there's a lot of funders out there. What made you kind of say, okay, I'll give Reid a shot?
I think the fact that you actually reached out to me, like when you first reached out to me, replying to one of my emails, I'm like, okay, sure, I'm putting myself out there so more people know me. Um, and as I said, I was skeptical, not necessarily that you were a scam artist or something like that. It's just like, I don't know if this is something I need or something I would
Sure.
do. But then, as I said, when that offer came across my desk, I'm like, you know what? I shouldn't think small here. I should really think bigger here. How can I make this happen? So I'm like, oh, well, there is that one guy who said he's looking to fund some deals. Let's see if he's serious. Let's see what this process is about. And before that, we actually spoke a little bit. And I'm like, what he presented to me sounded very interesting. I kind of like what he said. And it kind of got me excited because I didn't have to have all the cash for myself up front, where I get to the feast or famine. Basically, one month, everything is great because it's all sale, sale, sale. And then the next month, when I'm just acquiring land. And at the end, I'm like, oh, since I was just acquiring land and I, use all my capital, I ain't got nothing left. So I'm kind of stuck. And all right, well, do I have enough to pay these bills and this and that? So having somebody to have my back that understands the business is important for me. Now, I have friends that was like, hey, why don't I just give you some money and you can invest it for me? And I've never really felt comfortable with that. And the fact that you Reid know the land business, and even though you may not have done a ton yourself or any yourself, you understand it because you've taken the courses. You understand what it takes. And speaking to you, it was very obvious that you understood everything from buying to selling. I felt comfortable like taking this chance with you. And I like at the end of the day, it ain't my money. So, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But with friends and family, as you mentioned before, they're like, hey, did you sell it yet? What's going on? How come it's not sold yet? You promised me these type of returns. How come I'm not getting these type of, I don't want to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And being that you're a professional in this industry, I knew I can just, as you said, just do my thing, do my magic work. And that's why I'm like, I'm gonna give him a shot. And I've been very glad that I did because I see a lot of other things in the horizon. I know other investors that I'm teaching currently who's looking to use basically someone like you. And I was like, hey guys, before I just you his
Yeah.
information, let me make sure he's on the up and up. And so far you have been. So now I feel confident giving it to the people that I'm teaching land investing to. That like, hey, if you need help funding a larger deal or even a smaller deal, I have a guy. It feels
Yeah.
cool to say that. I got
Well,
a
let's
guy.
get through this deal. Make sure that you're still good. I don't have any doubts, but I think that the other thing too that I've run into is that some individuals will do a back-to-back closing, so like a double close. So then they
Mm-hmm.
don't need funding.
Mm-hmm.
But then some of the sellers are not comfortable with that, or they're getting with the amount of competition that's coming in, or then I mean, I've got a mailing list of between 550 and 600 land investors that are active in the industry, like truly active. And so their websites work. I go through it every month and clean it up. And then that list has been growing steadily every month. And so one of the things that is interesting to me is that uh, when I come across these investors, some of them are saying, yeah, I do double closes, but then on an occasion, my sellers are just not happy with me. Just they don't like the double close, or they don't want the long due diligence. They need it within 15 days. Maybe they've got some bills that they need to pay. So that's where I can come in and help. When maybe they don't want to put up their own capital and they want to put a lot more of their money. The smartest land investors that I guess that I've come across are the ones that are constantly putting all their money back into marketing, because they don't want to have that feast or famine sort of mode. They want
Yes.
they want to have more deals than they can actually pay for, actually. And so
Yes.
either they'll do double closes, they'll do a longer due diligence time, and then they'll just do an assignment of the deal. Or if that doesn't work, then they'll come up with their own cash, or they'll use my cash or somebody else's cash. And so I think when you're going through and trying to figure out, should someone use me for all their deals? I would love that, but that's not realistic. I think they need to look at each deal separately and say what makes the most sense. And then for those people that are using me a lot on their deals, the percentages are different, because if it's like one deal here or there, then it's kind of the standard percentage. But if like 55%, 45%, and then if as you do more and more deals with me, then that becomes more favorable to you, because I go up to 75%, 25%. So it just depends. But I wanted to get that out there because I don't want people to think that they should only go with the land funder. I think they need to really assess each one of the deals on their own and say, okay, well, is it small enough for me to take down? Is it something where I can do a double close? Can I do a longer due diligence? Can I do an assignment deal? What can I do to not use a funder? And then if they decide, nope, I need to use a funder, then they've got a list of funders and they know how to vet them to make sure that they're the right fit.
That's great. And you kind of stole my thunder a little bit.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. That's perfect. Now, I mean, we're on the same page. So two things I want to mention. Just everybody listening, when you are using an investor, you're obviously going to share the profit with the person that's funding the deal. The way Reid is working, and I'm imagining this is standard across many funders, I get 55% of the profit, he gets 45%. Obviously, the deal that we put together, we all want to make money. So if Reid puts up, let's just say 10,000, at the end of the day, he should be getting more than $10,000 back. Hopefully a lot more, but it would be great if he's not breaking even. If he breaks even, how would that be if you just broke even? Let's say you funded 10,000. How would you feel? Like, okay, you just got your 10,000 back. Is that a waste for you? You're like, I could have found another investor. I would have got more money. How do you feel about that?
If it was that one deal and then we were not planning on doing other deals and you were like, I'm done, I don't want to use you again, I'd be like, I'd feel probably a little bit, I'd probably have a bad taste in my mouth, to be honest. But if it was something where you said, you know what, we didn't come out, like one investor, we did a deal. I can't disclose too much, but all I can say is that normally a net profit split is usually around $5,000. That's like a minimum. So if it was the 55-45, then we would make some percentage in between there. But if it was break even, and then we had another deal going, then I'd be fine with it. I'd just say, you know what, we didn't do as well as we want. At least I got my capital back, and then let's roll it into the next one, because that next one could be a home run, or it could be a double or triple. So
Right.
I guess that's where I kind of look at it as, there's some funders that say I need 2x my money, or I need 3x my money, and if I don't get that, then you can't sell it for that amount. And then there's some funders that say the property needs to be, or the deed needs to be in my name only. And then there's others like me that say, no, depending on the situation, it can be in both of our names. So on our deal, both of our names are on the deed.
Yep.
So it's less advantageous for me, because if something happens to you, heaven forbid, then I'm kind of stuck in a way. Like I have to go through a lot of steps to be able to sell that property. But so I have less control. But I think it just depends on your comfort level, and also when you're thinking about the land investors and the land funders, you should just really kind of, if you're going to compare them, make sure that you're comparing all the different things. Like, does one funder say, because most funders want a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
That's typically the way it is. I just do 55-45 just to sweeten a little bit, because I feel like you guys are doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Mhm.
And then if we're doing a lot of volume, then that goes up to 75-25. So in your favor. So for me, it's all about velocity too. Like, I'm not, one of the other things too, when you're talking to a land funder, is normally you should set a minimum price. I think on our TIC agreement, our tenants in common agreement, you filled out, okay, well, if I sell it for, this is the minimum price I would sell it for cash, and then terms or whatever. And if someone comes to, like, what I think would be a really reasonable or a very important question is to go back to that land funder and say, okay, if we agree to sell it for this minimum price, but I get an offer a week later for $2,000 less than that minimum price, what's your answer going to be?
Mm.
And if they say, no, I really need that minimum price, then you know kind of how flexible or inflexible they are. And for me, I'm the type where, I just want to move the money. So that's, I mean, realistically, if I funded a deal for $9,000 or $10,000, and you came back to me a week later and said, hey, we got an offer for 15, but our minimum was 20, I'd really say, that kind of makes sense. It's been a week.
Yeah.
So let's take that money. It's not as much as we were hoping, but let's move that into the next deal. Because I think it's more important to get you paid and get me paid rather than try to sit on it and try to eke out the most money from it.
Oh, I'm in total agreement. I mean, that's how I do my deals anyway. I'm never trying to get that last little penny. I'm like, look, if someone has money ready to go right now, I'm ready to sell. That's more important to me than making an extra couple hundred or a couple $1,000, because
yeah,
what's the saying? Two in the hand is worth, wait, one in the hand is worth more than two in the bush, or whatever it is.
A bird in hand is worth more than two in the bush.
There you go. That's exactly how I feel about it. And every time I tried to go the opposite and get greedy, I've always been burned. So I'm glad, we're aligned on many ways. That's why this is working so well.
Yeah, there's another saying, a fast nickel is better than a slow dime. And that's how I roll.
I like that one. I like that one a lot. So I had a bunch of questions. It looked like you answered them all. So, all right. So I know maybe this one I shouldn't ask you, but let's say, how do I find more people like you out there? Like, hey, I need a funder.
You should ask me that. There's a spreadsheet out there. I'm going to plug Marcus Brown. Okay. He's put together a spreadsheet, and I'm on that spreadsheet, and a bunch of other funders are on there, and they have different criteria of what they're willing to do. So some say, I need a minimum profit of 10 grand, or I need a minimum profit of 2x my money, or I'll only do for 3 months. And then after that 3 months, you get nothing and I get 100%. That's kind of or 6 months or 12 months. So they have, and then they have the contact information. What I'll do is I can provide that to you, Victor, so then you can put that maybe in the notes or something, and then link out to that spreadsheet, because I think it's important that you match well with whoever you're going to be doing business with, because you don't know if you're going to have to turn it into a terms deal. And if you loathe the person, you can't imagine hanging out with them. I wouldn't want to be married to them for 3 to 5 years on a seller finance deal. So I think, go through the list. I don't think I'm the cheapest, but I don't think I'm the most expensive, but I think you got to do your own vetting to find out, do you care more about quality or what? I think it comes down to, how flexible is that person when it comes to deals? The other thing too is get a verification of funds letter. I don't know, Victor, if I gave you mine, but if I haven't, you can ask for it, but make sure that people really have the money that they say that they do. You don't want to end up at the closing and then you're like, well, the person gets cold feet. And I've heard that story a couple times from other people. So that'd be really terrible, because I don't know, wouldn't you be pissed off at me if today no wire came out and you're like, and I was like, oh, well, I know we researched this property, but I don't know, can you go out and take more photos, or can you do this research? I mean, I'd be like wasting your time, and then it's not even worth it. So
I'll be on the first flight to Colorado to whip your ass.
You had to kick my ass, or muscle me. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's important, is that there's just, you got to vet them. You really have to make sure, all the questions that I kind of mentioned, because you just don't want to, it's your reputation too, right? And you don't want to go back to the seller and say, oh, my partner pulled out, and now I got to find a new partner. I mean, just makes you look not professional. So
Absolutely.
that's kind of how I feel.
Oh no, that's great. No, and so thank you for number one for telling us about the spreadsheet, because you're right. Everybody who's listening to this, they'll have different personalities and preferences, and it's best to find a funder that's going to match them so they can have a harmonious business relationship.
Yeah.
So, I appreciate you, with the honesty there. With that said, how can people reach you to inquire about working with you and seeing if they're a good fit with you?
So they can go to rawlandfunder.com. That's just a quick website, or they can just call my cell. It's 303-960-8542. Text me, call me. Pretty much around. I do work a 9 to 5, but feel free to call me, text me. I can usually find some time and just get back to you. Usually it takes us between 24 and 48 hours to assess a deal. One thing I'll also mention too is before you, a few tips for some people that are interested in finding a funder and working with one. Just because I've run through this with a couple other investors, and I think just from a funder's perspective, if you have a deal that you want to get a funder for, make sure you have it under contract first. Don't send a deal to a funder if you really don't have it under contract, or at least let the funder know up front. Because we spend quite a bit of time calling up a couple brokers in the area, doing our own due diligence, and then it can kind of suck if you don't have the property under contract. And then meanwhile, that seller is maybe talking to another land investor, and they decide to sell it to another land investor because for whatever reason they thought that you weren't real and weren't going to buy it from them. I've seen that happen. So that's something that's important. And I think the other thing too is you really want to make sure that if you're going to present a deal to a funder, don't send it out to a bunch of funders and then not tell those funders, because I've been sent a deal before in the past, and I've heard this from other funders, that they've been sent a deal in the past and they do all their due diligence and they write back, oh yeah, I'm interested in doing the deal with you. And then when they come, maybe, I don't know, later that day to say, okay, I'm ready to move forward with you, the funders or the investor says, oh, well, I found another funder to do it. So that would rub me the wrong way. And so I think like whoever you're going to decide to go with, at least give them a shot to go through it, because it would probably leave them. I mean, they spend just as much time researching the property as probably you did. And so I think it's just common decency and respect, because I've been on the other side of that, and it doesn't feel good. So.
No, I imagine. It just seems to really work with your funder. Just be a good person, be decent, communicate, hell,
Yeah.
even over communicate if you need to, just so everybody's on the same page and everybody knows what they're getting into. And if you can do that, even if you don't make deals with people, you will probably at least be liked, if not liked, at least respected. So,
Yeah. Can you think of anything else that maybe from your perspective or the people that you work with, the other land investors, that they would want to know about what's it like working with a funder, what kind of questions they should ask the funder? I mean, just anything that you can think of.
all the questions that I had were already answered, because honestly, from my perspective, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's not that difficult, right? You find someone you want to work with, you just make sure they have the money and they actually understand what they're doing. And, you make sure you guys vibe, and they're like, all right, we're going to do this. This is how we're going to exchange the cash. So we're going to go through a title company, or I'll put it in your account and you can pay the seller, or however you guys decide, and stay in contact, and then have some kind of paper trail to show that, yeah, we're in business together, we're partners on this. And
Yeah.
it's pretty simple. It's pretty straight. It's shockingly simple. I would thought it was going to be a lot more hoops to jump through and a lot more headaches. It's been far from it. It's been very smooth. So that's why I don't have that many questions. It's just basically I have somebody to pay for a deal that I would pay for myself, and we're in it together. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And as you said, they're not like a family member who's hounding me, or I don't have that guilt or that pressure of working with a friend or a family member who not only doesn't know the industry, but I don't have to feel like I can't look at them in the eye when I see them at a family function or I'm hanging out because things didn't work out as I explained.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely a a factor that I've seen when people have come to me and said, "Hey, I want some funding." Doesn't mean you should give them a bad deal, but I mean, I think at the end of the day, you just want to look at all of the that entire relationship that you want to have with that funder and say, is this going to be a good fit? Do they match my personality? Are they going to let me do what I do best and kind of leave me alone, but just ask for updates on a monthly basis? If they're asking you for updates like on a weekly basis, I would say don't even bother. At
Yeah.
least I wouldn't. I think they just need to be reasonable and just kind of go with the flow. Like I was telling you, Victor, I mean, I'm going to be coming out in San Francisco next week,
Mm.
and this is something that I've wanted to do with all of my land investors, but with the pandemic and stuff, we haven't had a chance to do that. But I'm really excited to meet you and hang
Making
out and
history.
yeah, and just grab a bite to eat and stuff because that's what I want to have. I want to be able to, as cheesy as it sounds, is have that type of business relationship where I'm doing stuff with storage. Maybe you're not doing stuff with storage right now, but I want to be able to share as much as I know with it and know about it with you and help you along in your journey. So I think that's what it's all about. And I really believe in the abundance theory. So I don't know, not to get too cheesy, but that's kind of how I feel and how I look at things.
Absolutely. No, I'm one and the same, man. I'm pumped. I'm excited. I'm very excited. Um, but as everybody can see, our relationship is going great. So, I expect great things in the future and many deals to come. So if you want to find a funder, I'll put a link to not just Reid's information, but that spreadsheet he was referring to earlier with all the different funders that are out there. Hopefully, you can find somebody that will work well with you. Again, I made the assumption now you have to be a big shot or have all these deals on your belt. No, different people have different criteria, and you don't need to have like these really expensive deals. Hell, if you can't afford a $3,000 property, there's a funder out there for you that can, give you the money, show you the ropes, or whatever you need. So this business, not only was it easy before, but it's just gotten easier. You've gotten people that you can rely on, that you can lean on, and that can show you different aspects of the business that you didn't know existed, like self-storage. So with that said, Reid, do you have anything else that you want to share with the people who are listening? Because honestly, you gave so much today. I really appreciate all the gems you've been dropping. I mean, like, damn, like I didn't expect all this. So I'm gonna have to re-listen to this own interview myself to kind of pick these things up a little bit. But is there anything else that we didn't cover or that you may want to clarify or anything before we end this thing?
No, but if anyone, I mean, one thing I'll say is that regardless of if you want to do a deal with me or not, time is important to me, but I'm always willing to, if you want to shoot a text to me or a phone call to me, and if you have just questions or you feel like I didn't answer anything, Victor, that goes for you or anybody that's listening, more than willing to talk to you about it, about land. I geek out about all this stuff, especially real estate and self-directed IRAs and all this other stuff. And so, um, yeah, anytime that you want to just pick up the phone and call me or just ring me up, and if I can answer, I'll answer and answer any of your questions. You don't have to use me from a funding perspective to think that I'm going to just not be able to talk with you about these stuff. So I just want to make sure that the people that are investing in lands, they misses they don't run into too many speed bumps. They really are set up for success.
Nice. No, this is perfect. So whether you're just getting started or you're trying to scale and you need more help doing so, Reid your man or someone like Reid's out there. Other than that, this has been great. Hopefully you guys have been taking notes and you actually take these lessons and these words to heart because now you have no excuse. Before you may have said, I don't have knowledge, well, I've been giving you the knowledge. Now you're like, well, I don't have any money. Well, Reid can give you the money. So what other excuse is there? It's up to us to give you the knowledge and the money, but it's up to you to implement. That is your choice and that's your responsibility. But we can do everything else to help you implement. Other than that, man, this has been great, Reid. I really appreciate it. As I said, so much knowledge, uh, so much to talk about off camera. I'm excited.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll end it here. And if anybody got any questions, hit up me, hit up Reid. And as I said, in the notes, I'll have the link to the spreadsheet, Reid's contact information. And as I said, you got no more excuses now. Now you got capital. You have a funder that's ready to fund your land deals. And you don't got to be super seasoned, just hungry, ready to learn, ready to work. Other than that, it's Coach Vic and Reid Kurtenbach saying goodbye to the people. Appreciate all you guys listening. Thank you guys for everything. And we are out of here. All right, guys. Peace.